What is up, and welcome into the Monday Night Football Bets show here. I am Jeff Ratcliffe, and wow, what a day of football that was yesterday. Week 9 delivering full force. Was it daylight savings time? I've no idea. Screw daylight savings time, by the way. I'm sorry if you're a daylight savings time apologist, but screw daylight savings time. Fall back, spring forward. I don't freaking care, but it was a weird day of football. Good news is we have some more football tonight, and hopefully we can right this ship with the Chicago Bears and Pittsburgh Steelers facing each other. So like we do every Monday on this show, I'll break down 5-player props that I like. I'll also break down my thoughts on the spread and the over-under for this one, where I have it projected out, and if we're going to make any plays on that front. In the meantime, though, do me a favor, head on over to ftnbets.com. Behind the paywall over there, which you can get to using the promo code RATPACK, you'll get access to Bet Tracker first and foremost. I love Bet Tracker. We don't claim that we hit every bet, and I know for sure I don't, but you know what I do know? Thanks to Bet Tracker. Well, yesterday, my 7 posted bets, I went 6-1. So that's pretty good. 13, a little over 13 units for the season is what I'm up. So we keep track of it all. And in NBA, I'm down right now. I'm down about 4 units for the season. So we keep track of it all, the good and the bad. We're not going to blow smoke up your rear ends. We're going to show you exactly where we are, show our work in the tracker. You can see every single posted bet, every single result, and know who's doing well and who isn't. You can follow right along with that. You can use our tools as well. We have our player prop tool from yours truly, which I'll be updating right after this show with the latest prop bets that I'm liking right now for tonight's contest. That's ftnbets.com. Of course, you can head over to ftnfantasy.com if you are a fantasy person, you want to get in on all of that insight, and ftndaily.com if you play some DFS. Get in on that optimizer right there. No major news on the injury front. You know, we're a week removed here from the Derrick Henry news, and that really stunk. There is maybe one minor injury that did actually have somewhat of a major impact yesterday for fantasy purposes. Chase Edmonds left that game very early, and what we saw is James Conner went ballistic. He went absolutely bonkers, put up one of the bigger lines that we've seen at running back this season. And it sounds like that's going to continue. It sounds like this is a high ankle sprain for Chase Edmonds. So James Conner, you got him for fantasy purposes. You like that. Of course, that will certainly juice up his lines as well. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. On Friday, I'll be back, of course, at 2 o'clock to talk all of the games. We'll see if we have a James Conner player prop. I don't think we will in the mix there. But that's Fridays at 2 Eastern. It's called JR Weekly. JR is my initial. Somebody's like, why do you call yourself JR? I don't, bro. I call myself Jeff, but some people do call me JR. I don't know. And they're like, oh, do you know what it means? No, I'm not. I don't know what it means. I'm not a kid. I don't know what it means. And Urban Dictionary has about 1,000 meanings for JR. So no, I don't know what the kids are saying today. All right. Anyway, I'm not changing the name. Anyway, let's talk about this game, though. So we have Pittsburgh, we have Chicago. Really interesting storylines coming into this one. On the Chicago side, for sure, David Montgomery, it looks like he will be activated for this. So coming off of injured reserve. We also have Justin Fields coming off of a quasi-breakout game. Now, it wasn't a breakout passing game. He didn't even have 200 passing yards in that contest, but he looked more comfortable, especially because of that one special touchdown run, but just the running in general. We've seen the rushing increase over the last 3 weeks. And really, sometimes that's all it takes with these guys. Now, I don't claim to be a professional football player. I never was. Google seems to think I played professional lacrosse, which that isn't true either. But regardless, look it up. Look it up. Google Jeff Ratcliffe, and you'll see what I mean. Regardless, I did participate in track and field at the high school participate. I'm so nerdy. And at the high school and college level. And I can say from my experience as an athlete, and maybe you're watching right now, you have these experiences as well. There are times where you are nervous. There are things that can happen, though, when you're nervous that get rid of the nerves, right? Put you on track. You get in your comfort zone. It felt like watching that game, Justin Fields got into his comfort zone. Really started to just react instead of thinking. That game speed at the NFL level is so fast, and it isn't necessarily because the guys are any faster. You have great athletes in Division I college football, great athletes, but it's because everybody in the NFL is smart, so smart, knows the game at such a high level that everything is reaction time, and you just simply don't see that until you're on an NFL field. So he's seeing it really for the first time over the last month and a half here. Do we see progress with Justin Fields? What do we see in terms of the receivers? Does Allen Robinson finally come alive? A lot of questions heading in here. On the other side, does Ben still look like he's completely over the hill? He has looked that way pretty much for the entire season. Does that continue here, or is he able to sort of manufacture some more? I don't know. It even looks like his throwing motion is different. He looks like he's throwing the ball like Phillip Rivers out there all of a sudden. So we'll see what happens on that front. Of course, we know they're going to continue to feed the rock to Najee Harris. The line in this one, -7 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Over under 40.5 are the most recent numbers that I saw right before the show here. I have this at -6 for the Steelers, so I have the Bears at least keeping it somewhat close. Even in games that we think are going to be complete blowouts, Jacksonville showed us yesterday we can't take any NFL team lightly. Any given Sunday, any given Monday, any given Thursday, and sometimes any given Saturday, the team that on paper looks like they are an absolute dog could come out and be pretty feisty like the Jags. So I don't want to downplay the Bears here at all. The edge there isn't enough for me to take the Bears to cover in this one. I just wouldn't be shocked if it happened. The over-under, I think, is a little bit more of an edge. I have it coming in 2 points under 40.5, 38.7, so 1.8 under. I think the under is in play just given the nature of both offenses. Pittsburgh, we saw last week, they're not the most potent offense. They are going to really run through Najee Harris. You'll get a little Deontay Johnson in the receiving game, but it'd be surprising if this was an explosive output from this offense. And likewise, on the Chicago side, they're going to keep the score relatively low, very likely here based on what we've seen out of this offense. So I think the under is in play for this one. Now let's go to the player props. I mentioned Najee Harris numerous times. Right now that Derrick Henry is not playing, if you look at active players, Najee Harris is leading the league in touches per game, 23.6 touches per game. It's absolutely bananas in terms of the workload he's receiving, but it's exactly what we had expected, exactly what we hoped for, and exactly the reason we gave to the naysayers heading into the season saying, oh, he can't possibly be effective behind that offensive line. The number one thing for running backs to be effective from a statistical standpoint isn't the offensive line, it's volume. Now, you could be lackluster with a lot of volume. You certainly could be, but he hasn't been lackluster. He's been really impressive so far. And I look to the matchup as well. I do expect heavy volume here. We could certainly see 20-plus carries out of Najee Harris in this one. Last week, Chicago facing off against San Francisco, and we saw Elijah Mitchell in that contest go up over 100 rushing yards. So I immediately gravitate towards the rushing yards line here for Najee Harris. 79.5 right now, -115 on either side of DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm hitting the over up on that one. Absolutely hitting the over on 79.5. It's a pretty big line, but I like the over here. I think we're going to see a ton of him. And as I said, hey, if we hit 20 carries, I think he's going to average over 4 yards a carry. So there we go. We got her over just with that right there. By the way, if you did want to search out, see if there are any better lines out there, or you want to search out other props for Najee Harris, you want to see his receiving yards, you want to see his receptions, you want to see his rushing attempts, all of those lines you could search out over at ftnbets.com. Use the prop shop. It's a great resource. It is basically the Google of sports betting. Go in there, type in his name, Najee Harris. Boom. All of the odds, and specifically you can sort by state as well. So you're in Pennsylvania, boom. All the lines that are on Pennsylvania books. You are in New Jersey, got you there. Colorado, same thing, and so on. All the states that you have there, you can search it out nice and easy. And you don't even have to subscribe to check that tool out. Great, great, great resource. You can even click right on through, go to the sports book, sign up if you don't already have an account. We make it easy on you. All right, let's go to the next play. I got 3 Steelers plays, 2 Bears plays for you today. We're gonna go on to tight end up next. We are seeing a little bit of a surge in youngster Pat Fryermuth, as my buddy Jake Seeley calls him, Air Fryer, which that's not too bad. I like that nickname. Anyway, Fryermuth, 33 and a half receiving yards is the line. He's been way over this in each of the last 2 weeks, 7 targets in both of those games. I don't think this is going anywhere. When you look at the type of player he is, I can see some similarities. He may be a little bit more athletic, but some similarities to an early career Heath Miller. We know how Ben Roethlisberger riffed with Heath Miller. So I could see that a little bit there. It's not exactly the comp I'd have for Fryermuth, but not a terrible comp either. And we've seen, just the looks going his way. Like I said, 7 in each of the last 2. We saw Fryermuth with that pretty touchdown reception last week. And I'm also seeing minus 110 on the over for that 33 and a half right now on FanDuel. That line is higher elsewhere too. So it always pays to shop around. Give me that over right there. Looking on the comments, because, hey, if you're watching on YouTube, which, cool, awesome. Subscribe, like, do all that fun stuff. But if you comment right now, I can see the comments and I can talk to you. Pocket QB Lamar Jackson. Okay. Asks, is Ebron out again? I believe he is, but it doesn't even, I think it's a moot point at this point. Like, Fryermuth had already passed him up even when he was healthy. So yeah, I don't even think it matters. We had a nice little run with Ebron for a brief period of time, but his best days for fantasy purposes are certainly behind him. And really for football purposes, the team is using Fryermuth. He's asking about the Bears defense tonight. I guess you're using them for fantasy purposes. I guess I don't hate it. I don't love it either. He's saying that Eric Ebron steals touchdowns. Not after Fryermuth does that in the red zone, but appreciate the comments here. If you're watching along as well and you want to interject, feel free. This is a betting show, but I talk fantasy as well, so it doesn't really matter to me. I'll hit up your fantasy questions as we go through here as well. Let's move on to our next player prop. Keying in on Deontay Johnson. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what sportsbooks are thinking. Over at FTN Bets on Saturday, I put up some player props, and one of them was Brandon Bolden. FanDuel had him at 7.5 receiving yards. Sometimes I don't know what the books are thinking. Like, sometimes the books are really spot on, like scary spot on, even with their opening lines. But that was one where I was like, I'm either missing something entirely or they just completely whiffed. I think the line ended up, it moved up to like 9.5 at one point. I didn't see what it closed at, but regardless, he destroyed the line. It was a gimme putt of all gimme putts with that one. Now, I don't know if this Deontay Johnson line is quite that much of a gimme putt, but it's also one of these lines where I think it's just too low over at PointsBet. 70.5 receiving yards. That's not a low line. It's not like they're saying Deontay Johnson 33 receiving yard, 33.5, whatever. But it's still pretty low for Deontay Johnson, who has been over this line in each of his last 5 games. Now, there is the outside chance we could see some Jalen Johnson shadowing Deontay Johnson, but I even that, with his volume in this passing game, Ben Roethlisberger has made it abundantly clear he loves to throw him the football as much as he loves Fryermuth. He loves himself some Deontay Johnson, and rightfully so. We're going to see a lot of targets for him. 70.5, normally a line where, hey, for a lot of players, that's a pretty high line. But for Deontay Johnson, just given the circumstances here, I'm going to hit up the over on this one. Going to play that over. I think I would go up to, I'm seeing other books up at 73.5. I'd still go over on that. I do think we're going to see a lot of Deontay Johnson here. Logan checking in here on the comments. Thoughts on James Washington's receiving yards tonight? It is at 13.5 currently. I don't mind the over on that one because we don't need much to hit that over. It's close to a one-play payday. So if you watched us last year, we had the Thursday night show that I was on. Now it's Elliot and Brooke and Ray are on that show for us. But on that show, I would often do my one-play paydays. So one-play payday, it's really simple. It's a bet that only takes one play to get you the over, right? And in football, we get a lot of them. You don't get as many in NBA. I guess you could have one with a 3-pointer if the line is a half 3-pointer, but otherwise it's going to be pretty tricky. Maybe blocks. I guess blocks could have you could have a one-play payday or potentially steals. But regardless, football, it happens all the time because, you have a receiver like this who historically James Washington would have had a little bit of a higher ADOT. Not seeing as much of that now, but he does have an opportunity to get on the field. They're not just initially I had thought after Juju that it would be, well, James Washington's out there basically an every down guy. Not really the case, but he should get enough work here where that over is in play. I think it's a 2-play payday, though. I think he does need 2 catches to get that over. So I don't mind the over on that one, Logan. It's not on my list, but I don't mind the over. All right, so we did the 3 Pittsburgh props. Let's go over to the 2 Chicago Bears props. We're going to start with Justin Fields. I already locked in 6.5 rushing attempts. That you're not going to get that line anywhere now. It's 7.5 rushing attempts. I still think the over is in play for that, but I don't like it obviously as much as I like that 6.5. See, it sometimes does pay to get in these lines early. Some of our guys have, they put their player props up on FTNBets.com as early as, in some instances, Tuesday for the Thursday games. And as soon as the weekend games come out, they're putting their lines in there. For me, a lot of times I sit down, I can do my analysis on Saturday. So that's when I put them up. That's where the line was on Saturday, though. So it's already jumped up to 7.5. But I'm going to key in on his rushing yards. 37.5 right now on PointsBet, minus 115. That line is the lowest you're going to find it there. It is a little bit higher on some of the other books. So is what it is with that. Like to shop around, like to get a couple yards shaved off of any line. So we get that 37.5. We've seen Justin Fields over the last 3 weeks really open it up a little bit more. How you get a player like him, as I was saying at the top of the show, more comfortable, well, get some design runs in there. Yes, he'll scramble a little bit, but we don't necessarily want our quarterbacks scrambling as much as we want them in design runs, because hopefully with those design runs, like Lamar Jackson, for example, and we see it with Jalen Hurts as well, these guys are good at avoiding the major hits. On a scramble, sometimes that's hard to avoid, but if it is a design play, it makes it it's never going to be easy, but a little bit easier. Get him comfortable out there, get him on the move. The offense operates better when he's on the move, and don't be so darn stubborn if you are the head coach of said team. But I like the over on 37.5, especially with the performance. I don't think we're going to see a 100-yard rushing performance out of him again this week, but I do think 48, 50 yards, something like that is completely reasonable. So if you're telling me I can absolutely smash that over, I'm all in on that at minus 115. Let's go to Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson is maybe one of the biggest fantasy disappointments of the season. I mean, Justin Fields is right there as well, because the expectations were very high given what we'd seen, at the college level. A lot of people, we saw it on a big stage. We saw it in the playoffs last year and how good he performed in some of those games. But the overall state of the offense is cover him up, pound the rock on the ground, Khalil Herbert or David Montgomery, or probably both of them tonight, and cover up the passing game. So Allen Robinson, major disappointment. However, I've talked about this many times before on the shows that I do. I love when I can get plus odds on something, because if I get plus odds, if it's a bet that I think it's close, I'm going to make the bet, because I don't have to hit the bet as many times in the long term to be profitable. Right now, plus 120 on an over for Allen Robinson receptions, 3.5. Now, 3.5. I don't think this is an Allen Robinson 8-catch night. I really don't, given what we've seen this season. But all we need is 4. And he has had 4, exactly 4 receptions in 2 of his last 4 games. So is this my most confident play? Absolutely not. No way, not on this board, not at all. But it is a play that I like, and I kind of like having to root for some of these overs here. I'll play unders occasionally. I don't have any unders on the board for tonight, but I'm going to root for this over. And I still want to see this offense open up a little bit more. Pocket QB Lamar is saying that it's going to be tough to get his props. I guess he's talking about Justin Fields. With Nagy back, I don't know if it's Nagy. I don't know if it was Justin Fields' now 6th game as a starter. Let's not forget, he didn't have any first team reps until he became the starter. Allen Robinson actually talked about that. He said, we're trying to get on the same page. So Nagy basically gave Andy Dalton, QB1, all of the first team reps heading into the season. I know that Nagy's become that coach that everybody just likes to pile on. You know, you every year you get these coaches, people want to pile on these coaches, and he's that guy right now. I get it, but I don't know if that's necessarily the entire issue with Justin Fields. I think he's getting his legs underneath of him, honestly. So we're going to take it. We're going to take that over on 3.5 receptions for Allen Robinson. So here we go to run it down. Najee Harris over 79.5 rushing yards. Pat Freiermuth over 33.5 receiving yards. Deontay Johnson over 70.5 receiving yards. Justin Fields over 37.5 rushing yards. And Allen Robinson over 3.5 receptions, but only because it's plus 120. If that was minus 115, I am not taking that bad boy right there. Yeah, appreciate people who are commenting during the course of the show. You can always comment after the fact as well. You can let us know how much you love this or the other way around, because that's how YouTube goes. The cesspool that it is, whatever. Bring it on. Bring it on. As long as you like, as long as you subscribe, I don't care what you do. Like, subscribe, comment, follow along with us on Twitter, FTN Fantasy, FTN Bets, FTN Daily. I'm at Jeff Ratcliffe on Twitter, at Jeff Ratcliffe on Instagram. And remember as well that you should hit those websites up, ftnbets.com, ftnfantasy.com, ftndaily.com. Use the promo code RATPACK. Get yourself a discount. Only one T in RATPACK. Don't put that second T in there. All right, I'm going to be back on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern for JR Weekly. Until then, enjoy the football. Hopefully, Week 9 gets a little bit better. All right, I'm Jeff Ratcliffe, and I'm out.